Okay, problem number 2 gives us a rectangle, and the first part says which expression represents the perimeter of the rectangle, and part 2 says which expression represents the area of the rectangle. So first of all, let's recall our perimeter equation. Perimeter equals 2 times the width plus 2 times the length. You can think about that as just adding up all the sides, adding up both the widths and both the lengths. Looking at our picture, we only have 2 sides labeled. So since this is 5, we know this is going to also be 5. Likewise, since the bottom is 3x plus 2, we know that the top is 3x plus 2. So our perimeter here is just going to be adding up all 4 sides. So we have 5 plus 5 plus 3x plus 2 plus 3x plus 2. Okay, starting with like terms, we have 3x and 3x that we can add together. That gives us 6x. Looking back at our answers, we only have one answer with a possibility of a 6x, so our answer must be D. Let's just double check and make sure that we also get 14 before moving on. 5 plus 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12, plus another 2 is 14, so we're good to go on this one. Our answer is D. Circled that one in the wrong problem, sorry about that. Okay, the next part says which expression represents the area of the rectangle. So now area is equal to length times width. So we're going to multiply together 2 of our sides. So it's going to look like 5 times 3x plus 2. Anytime we see a number out in front of parentheses, we're going to have to distribute it. So we're going to do 5 times 3x and 5 times 2. So 5 times 3x is 15x. Let's look at our answers. Can we cross any of them off? Well, we can get rid of A and D because they don't have a 15x. And then we have to do 5 times 2, so we get 10. So our answer is B. Make sure that you distribute to both terms in the parentheses, or else you might have thought your answer was C, which it's not. Problem 6. A cheetah is running 90 feet per second. An antelope starts running at the same time at 60 feet per second, but is 120 feet ahead of the cheetah. After how many seconds will the cheetah catch up to the antelope? So we're going to need to take the equation for the cheetah's distance that it's running, and we're going to set it equal to the distance formula we're going to use for the antelope. Okay, so the cheetah is running 90 feet per second, so we're going to put 90x for the cheetah. 90 feet every second, and the question is how many seconds will it take? So x is our unknown. The antelope is running 60 feet per second, but it got a head start of 120 feet. So it's already 120 feet ahead of the cheetah. So let's solve this equation. We're going to subtract over 60x. We get 30x equals 120. Divide both sides by 30 because that x was attached with the 30 by multiplication. And we get x equals 4 seconds. So our answer here is C, 4 seconds. If you didn't know how to do this problem and you wanted to use your answers to figure it out, you could say, okay, after 1.2 seconds, the cheetah has gone 108 feet. All right, let's see how far the antelope has gone after 1.2 seconds. So 60 times 1.2 plus 120, and that is 192 feet. So you know that after 1.2 seconds, the cheetah hasn't quite caught the antelope yet. You could do that with each of your answers to see what your answer, whenever you plug in 4, you're going to get them at the same distance. Okay, next problem. If a 6-foot tall tent casts a 10-foot long shadow, I am all about drawing pictures on this. So I've got a tent. It's a 6-foot tall tent, so I'm going to label this as 6 feet. Casts a shadow of 10 feet long. Then how long is the shadow that a 9-foot tall elephant casts? Okay, I've got to draw an elephant here. Don't judge my drawing skills. Okay, it's an elephant with a very big trunk. So the elephant is 10 or 9 feet tall, and I want to know how long the shadow is. So setting up this drawing is going to really help me set up my proportion for this problem. I could set it up multiple ways as long as I'm the same with both the tent and the elephant. So I'm going to do 6 foot over 10 foot for the tent equals 9 foot over x for the elephant. I worked myself into a corner, so I rewrote my problem on the left side. So we're going to cross multiply. We get 10 times 9 is 90, and 6 times x is 6x. Divide both sides by 6, and we get x equals 15 feet. Okay, let's talk a little bit about using our answers here. So if we have a 6 foot tall tent with a 10 foot long shadow, there's no way we're going to have a 9 foot tall elephant with a 37 or 35.7 foot shadow, or even really 30. That just doesn't seem like it matches well. So you can kind of sometimes cancel out answers that don't make sense in problems to narrow down your selection. All right, Milton and San Jose are 9 inches apart on a map, and the map has a scale of 1 inch is every 13 miles. How far apart are the real cities? Okay, so on our map, San Jose and Milton are 9 inches apart, and we know that 1 inch is 13 miles apart, so we're going to take 13 and do something with 9. We're either going to add it, subtract it, multiply it, or divide it. So let's think about that. If we're 9 inches apart on a map and every single one of those inches is 13 miles, we should get a bigger number out of this. So we're not going to divide, but instead we're going to multiply 9 by 13. When we do that, we get 117 miles. So our answer here is D. On problem 8, we could have probably also just crossed off answer A. If they're 9 inches apart and every inch is 13 miles, this would mean that they're less than 1 inch apart if they're under 13 miles, so no way that that's our answer. Okay, problem 9. We're solving this equation for y. When solving for y, the first thing we always have to do is move the x term away first. Don't try to separate the 18 and the x, just move it over. Since this is a negative 18x, we're going to add 18x on both sides. On the left side, these 18x's cancel out because they add to 0, and we're left with just 2y. On the right side, we can't combine negative 26 and 18x because they're not like terms, so we're just going to put 18x here and then a minus 26 here. Don't forget that the negative goes with the 26. Now, we have one step left before we have our y alone. We need to get rid of the 2. We're going to divide every single term by 2. You can't just divide the 18x by 2. You also have to divide the negative 26. So we get y equals 18 divided by 2 is 9, and negative 26 divided by 2 is negative 13. So there's our answer. So we get D. Problem 10, same idea. We have 2x plus y equals 7. So start by moving away the x term. We're going to subtract 2x on both sides. So we just have y left on the left side. And on the right side, we put these side by side, negative 2x plus 7. Now, I think this answer of C is really distracting. Like, you might think that's right because you might accidentally switch your signs here. But make sure you leave your 7 as positive and your 2x as negative, and then you'll see that our answer is actually B. Alright, this next equation is having us rewrite the equation for B. So we're going to solve for B here. Alright, whenever we're getting this variable alone, just like we solved for y in the other equations, we're going to first get rid of the other term, the term that doesn't have the b in it. So DE is positive, so I'm going to subtract DE over. Right now, if you look at some of your answers, it looks like we might be able to cross off B because it's the only one that has an F plus DE. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that one off. Now the last step is to get rid of the C. The C is attached to the B by multiplication, so we're going to divide both sides by C. So our answer here is C. D is a distractor, a problem or an answer that you might think is right, because in that one we solve for C. So make sure that you're careful about what you're solving for and you always remember what letter you're going for on these problems. Alright, 12. We're going to solve 14 is greater than or equal to negative 2x plus 4. Now the thing to really remember on inequalities is that whenever you multiply or divide by a negative, you need to flip the sign. So we're going to start with combining like terms, or getting the like terms on the same side. My 14 is over here. I want to move my 4 over to the same side. So I'm going to subtract 4 because it was a positive 4. Next, I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 2. So 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. Okay, right there we can cross off C and D. They both have 9 or negative 9 on them. Then we get an x on the right side, and we have to flip our sign. Always flip your sign. Neither of my remaining answers are written in this way, so I'm going to flip my entire answer to look like A and B. So x goes over here, negative 5 goes over here, and we have to flip our sign to keep it the same. So our answer here is B. Problem 13. You're making cupcakes for a friend's party. The recipe uses 2/3 cup of cocoa powder, and you are making 5 batches of the recipe. How many cups of cocoa powder will you use? So every recipe needs 2/3 of a cup, and we're making 5 different batches. One way you could do this is say you have 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3. That would be 5 batches. The way that you add fractions is you add the numerator as long as the denominator is the same. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 10 over 3. Keep the denominator the same. 3 goes into 10 3 times. We're going to want a mixed number here, so we have to change this to a mixed number. 3 goes into 10 3 times, so that'd be 3, and there's 1/3 left over. So your answer here would be B. A little bit easier way to do this problem would just be to multiply 2/3 by 5. The way that we multiply fractions is we make our whole numbers into fractions, and then we multiply across. 5 times 2 is 10 over 3, which again is 3 1/3. Problem 14. 30 is what percent of 80? So we need to make sure that we have our percent formula memorized. That's percent over 100 equals is over of, or you can think of it as part over whole. Is over of works for this problem because it uses the words is and of. So first of all, it says 30 is. That means that 30 goes where is. So 30 goes up here. 30 is what percent? That means that we don't know the percent, and we should put X where the percent would go. Of 80, so 80 goes where of should be. We're going to cross multiply. We get 80x equals 3,000. Divide both sides by 80, and we get x equals 37.5%. So our answer here is B. Now some ways that we could have canceled out answers to begin with. That 60% over there, do you think that 30 is 60% of 80? It's not even 40 yet. 40 would be 50%, so it's definitely below 50%. We could cross D off to begin with and say, no way. It's not 60% of 80. It would have to be bigger than 40, but it's just 30. Now that you're done with this spiral review, I want to encourage you to go back and look over your notes from these units, as well as your study guides for each of these tests, to make sure that you remember everything going on here, because anything in these concepts are potentially on your spiral.